Morning. Sir, good, how are you? Morning. Nice to meet you, Major. Thank you. Morning. Everybody ready? Good morning again. Thank everyone for being here today. I am Hampden District Attorney Anthony Gulluni. I welcome members of the media and the assembled law enforcement behind me, to my right and left. What I'm going to do is ask individuals starting at my right to just introduce themselves and state their agency just briefly for the media, please.
Sergeant Major Peter Pulio with the Massachusetts National Guard.
Colonel Peter Fiorentino, County Drug Coordinator, Massachusetts Army National Guard.
Major David Lamontagne, Hampden County Sheriff's Department.
Captain Gary Truman, Hampden County Sheriff's Department.
Lieutenant Chris Wilcox, Mass State Police, Lieutenant Colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel Scott Wilmington, Deputy Superintendent, Massachusetts State Police.
Major Patrick Tornio, Connecticut State Police.
Major John Aiello, Connecticut State Police.
Frank Anthony Ruffalo, Homeland Security Investigations.
Chief Larry Valier, Westfield Police.
Jake Toniak, Westfield Police.
Detective Lieutenant Kevin O'Toole, Sinrat West Unit Commander, Mass State Police.
Sergeant John Mahar, Connecticut State Police.
Matt Fontaine, FBI.
Captain Brian Keenan, Springfield Police.
Chief David Pratt, Florida Police Department.
Chief Robert Alberti, East Hampton Police Department.
Brian Yen with ATF.
Thank you. An impressive array of law enforcement, I think a record in attendance for this office, and I'm proud to speak briefly about a recently concluded investigation that resulted in significant arrests and a significant confiscation, as you can see, of firearms and narcotics. I want to principally thank the Massachusetts State Police, in particular the Sinrat unit, and the Connecticut State Police for their work, and all the associated agencies, many of which are represented here today. As you can tell, and something I want to emphasize to the public, is the collaboration and participation across jurisdictional and state lines in this investigation that really is work that benefits public safety and benefits the public that we all jointly serve. This is unique in the sense that you have Connecticut State Police represented, you have the federal government represented, the Massachusetts State Police, and various local law enforcement organizations represented. This is really a coming together of an impressive force, again, to the benefit and the betterment of public safety and the safety of folks on our streets across Western Massachusetts and into Connecticut. This is the conclusion of a lengthy and complicated investigation into the distribution of both drugs and guns throughout this region, stretching down to the state of Connecticut. In total, this investigation led to the arrest of 3 individuals, all now charged with very significant crimes here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It also led to the seizure of 16 firearms, many or all of which you see before you here today, approximately 15,000 packets of heroin which are ready for consumption and street use, as well as almost 1 kilogram of fentanyl. Of course, fentanyl is, in many cases, usually much, much stronger than heroin, consequently can be much more lethal than heroin, and is often broken down to create much more single-use baggies out on the street. So this investigation led to a significant seizure of heroin and fentanyl, which would have led, as it was broken down and distributed at the street level, to a very, very significant amount of drugs that, of course, not only poisons our streets, but leads to overdose deaths. So this is a very significant result just for those purposes in particular. The success of this investigation, as I alluded to earlier, would not have happened without various law enforcement agencies working in partnership across jurisdictional and state lines to interrupt this very significant drug and gun dealing network. It is our belief that these guns were being sold and were, through this small organization of individuals, being distributed to other people who were, in many cases, using them for criminal activity. There's no question this kind of seizure of both the narcotics and the firearms has a significant and positive regional impact on public safety. More specifically, on September 30th, law enforcement from Massachusetts zeroed in on Giovanni Saldana as he was on his way to Hartford, Connecticut. Investigators learned he would be traveling back to Springfield with a significant amount of narcotics. On his return trip to Massachusetts, he was pulled over on Interstate 91 in the Longmeadow area and was found to be transporting 95 grams of fentanyl and heroin. He was taken into custody at that point without incident by Massachusetts State Police and many of the organizations who were participating in the investigation. In the meantime, back in Hartford, led by the Connecticut State Police, did observe an individual attempting to leave the location in Hartford where Mr. Saldana had just left. The Connecticut State Police at that point seized 15,000 bags of heroin and 800 grams or so of fentanyl and a 9mm handgun. In the days following Mr. Saldana's arrest, law enforcement executed additional search warrants, one at 35 Casbeck Street in the city of Springfield, which led to the seizure of a significant amount of additional firearms, including several high-capacity firearms, a sawed-off shotgun, and one firearm equipped with a silencer, all of which I believe are here today. Needless to say, to really anyone, those are instruments of death. Those are serious firearms that could really do a lot of damage in terms of loss of life on the streets when used illegally. 2 additional individuals were taken into custody in connection with this investigation, Jose Rios and Alexander Rivera. Both are now facing serious gun and drug charges as well. Mr. Saldana is currently being held on high bail. Mr. Rios and Mr. Rivera are both facing very serious charges in this jurisdiction, which my office will prosecute as aggressively as possible. Mr. Saldana is charged with 1 count of trafficking in heroin and or fentanyl between 36 and 100 grams. Mr. Rios is charged with various gun offenses. Mr. Rivera is charged with drug and gun offenses. I will note that there is a strong possibility that additional charges will result in the state of Connecticut upon further investigation. At this point, I want to thank again the law enforcement involved for their work on behalf of the public and for their collaboration across those jurisdictional and state lines. And I do want to welcome a member of the Massachusetts State Police and a member of the Connecticut State Police to speak. First, I'll ask Deputy Scott Warmington from the Massachusetts State Police to say a word on behalf of his organization.
Good morning. On behalf of Colonel Mason, we want to thank the District Attorney for our partnership, which goes without question. It makes us all better. The collaboration that the District Attorney talks about is something that we promote within our organization, and it's shown here with the collaboration and the partnerships which resulted in such a seizure. This seizure here with these firearms not only make Hampden County safer, it also makes the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the state of Connecticut, and Rhode Island probably much safer today too. So on behalf again of the state police, we just appreciate our partnerships with our local, state, and federal partners, the National Guard. We have a great relationship, and we can't function without them. So again, we appreciate it. We have a task force that we have together that the DA and I had successfully started, and I think it's helping Hampden County become a much, much, much safer, where we basically target prolific offenders. So again, thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Deputy. At this point, I'll ask a member of the Connecticut State Police, Major Tornio, to speak on behalf of the Connecticut State Police. Major?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Appreciate being here. Appreciate the invite. On behalf of Colonel Malikas from the Connecticut State Police, my name is Major Patrick Tornio. I'm the commanding officer of the Bureau of Special Investigations, and we also encompass the statewide narcotics task force. I'd like to say this investigation shows incredible and excellent collaboration and investigative techniques used by all of our law enforcement partners. As we know, drug trafficking organizations know no boundaries. They try to exploit us in that regard, but because we have such trusting partnerships with our law enforcement partners, and we've built these relationships over time. This allows us to investigate these drug trafficking organizations across bounds and take them into custody as displayed in this case. We're very proud to have been a part of this investigation, and we greatly appreciate the invite to speak here today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to emphasize the collaboration that comes together, it doesn't happen in all places and it doesn't always happen easily, but the relationships that we've built as a law enforcement community here in Western Massachusetts, I think bear fruit, and you see that before you today. And really, I think important to all of us, speaking on behalf of the National Guard, the local organizations, the Connecticut State Police, the Massachusetts State Police, we want to do our best each and every day for the public and for the public's safety. And investigations like this, as we've laid out, have a deep and broad impact on public safety. The firearms taken off the streets that are often used for criminal purposes, and we deal with that outcome, that sad and tragic outcome, has been prevented by these 16 firearms, many of which are very serious items, very serious examples of firearms are now taken off the street. So we're very proud of that. I thank everyone again for their hard work, and I'm happy to take any questions that the media might have. Hi, Michael.
So just wanted to ask you if you could tell us where the actual drugs, I don't know if the investigation has kind of come out yet to say that, but where these drugs are kind of being trafficked in from.
Well, you know, there are things that we'll learn with the ongoing investigation, and there are things we won't learn, we might not know. But it's clear that this small group of individuals and probably associates around them were distributing drugs, and more likely than not, firearms, in the region that's represented here, which is Western Massachusetts and down into the state of Connecticut. So we're confident that this was a fairly sophisticated network of drug and gun distribution. It wasn't just centralized necessarily in Springfield. It's really much broader than that, and that was evidenced by the fact that we had evidence, and we've talked about that they were going back and forth to Hartford, Connecticut. So you have state capital of Connecticut, about 35 minutes away here in Springfield, another larger city. So this was a pretty serious operation. Yes, sir.
How long did the investigation take? And also, you noticed that you named a specific street in Springfield. Are people in that neighborhood safe after this happened?
They're safer now. They're safer now that the drugs and guns were taken out of that home. They're safer now that the individuals who were in and out of that home and up and down that street are now incarcerated or under charges. So that's what we do. We work to make streets and neighborhoods and communities and regions safer. So I'm confident to say that street and the other areas where these individuals were operating are now safer. With respect to the length of the investigation, this went on for about 6 weeks in earnest, but the work beforehand in identifying particular subjects, you know, learning the information necessary to move forward with this investigation, which ultimately led to 3 arrests, went on for much longer than 6 weeks. But really specifically, this was about a 6-week investigation in which my office and the Massachusetts State Police and its partners were involved, and we're very happy with the result.
Kind of stemming off that a little bit, obviously, you don't have control in the courtroom and what happens with these individuals, but I know like the concerns have been brought up, you know, what happens to these individuals, they get back out there, you know, the bail, you know, doesn't actually hold them there, so what's going to happen now going forward?
Well, one individual is held on a dangerousness hearing, which I believe has not taken place yet, but is held pursuant to that motion that my office made. One individual is held on high bail. One individual, quite frankly, was held initially on $50,000 bail, and that bail was posted. This individual came up with $50,000 in cash and is now under conditions of the court, and if there's any violations, he will be re-incarcerated or re-detained prior to trial. But given we think the impact on public safety these individuals were having, given the state of the evidence, we think this is very serious, and we do our best to ensure that folks are held, and certainly as we go forward with the prosecution, which will take some time, we're going to try to hold them to account for these very serious criminal violations. And again, the state of Connecticut is operating potentially towards additional criminal charges on one or more of these individuals. So this is very serious, and we hope that the court system treats it that way.
Thank you.
could there lead like to any more arrests in the network that you were talking about, where these drugs and guns were being distributed?
It is possible.
And I just have a question about the courthouse in Springfield. The city council suggests that, it get tear down and to build a new one. Do you have a response to that?
I agree we need a new courthouse. There's no question about it. I think I've made that clear. We probably have to find another place to go before it gets torn down, but I do agree we deserve and need a better and more suitable courthouse for the public in this area and for the folks who spend each and every day in the courthouse doing the work of the public.
And of course, that's possible, if you didn't know.
It is, yes. I'm aware. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting us.